All right, let's dive in. Today, we're exploring Kabbalah.
Sounds exciting.
Ever feel like there's this deeper layer to reality, like there's got to be more than meets the eye?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people feel that way.
That's kind of what Kabbalah is all about, right? Uncovering those hidden meanings, the original causes behind everything.
It is, and what's really cool about Kabbalah is that it's not about keeping this knowledge secret. It's freely available to anyone who wants to study the Torah.
That's right. And to guide our deep dive today, we're using this book. It's called Iniciación a la Kabbalah, Tomo I, by Rabbi Philip S. Berg. We'll also be looking at the cover, the preface, and the table of contents, kind of like our roadmap for the journey.
I always find the table of contents to be really helpful. You can see the structure of how Kabbalah approaches history, core teachings, even practical stuff, all laid out right there.
Okay, so before we go any further, let's get a clear definition. What exactly is Kabbalah? I mean, the book defines it as the study of the original causes of all things.
It's like trying to find the source code of the universe.
Right, like what makes everything tick? Why are we here? What's the driving force behind creation?
It's funny you should say that. It seems like a lot of people are asking those same questions these days. I feel like with all the technology and information overload, it's easy to feel a little lost, like we've lost touch with something essential.
Maybe that's why there's so much interest in Kabbalah these days.
It's possible. I think it's because Kabbalah offers a framework, a way of understanding our place in the grand scheme of things. It connects us to a sense of purpose and reminds us that we're part of something much bigger than ourselves.
It's a powerful concept, for sure. So where did all this wisdom come from? I'm picturing like ancient mystics huddled in secret, passing down this hidden knowledge.
Well, there's definitely an element of that. The book actually goes into the history of Kabbalah. It mentions figures like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who was really important in revealing the Zohar.
The Zohar, right. One of the key Kabbalistic texts. And it also talks about the saved period, a time when Kabbalah really flourished.
Okay, so we have these ancient texts and these mystical figures, but what are they actually saying? What are the core concepts that we need to understand to really grasp what Kabbalah is all about?
Okay, get ready because this is where it gets really mind-bending. The book talks about things like the 10 luminous emanations, which are like stages of creation, and the tree of life, which is a visual representation of the universe, and divine attributes.
Whoa, those sound intense.
Yeah.
How does the book even make those ideas understandable?
That's one of the things I love about Kabbalah, actually. It uses these analogies and metaphors. It takes these huge abstract ideas and makes them relatable. For instance, to explain the creation of the universe, it uses this analogy of light and vessels.
Light and vessels. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So imagine an infinite source of light. This represents divine energy.
Okay, I'm with you.
This light is pouring into vessels. The vessels represent the different aspects of creation.
Okay, so far so good. And when those vessels are in harmony, the light can flow freely.
Makes sense.
But when those vessels are broken, or they're not aligned properly, the light gets restricted. And that restriction can cause chaos and imbalance.
I'm starting to get the picture. So how does this apply to us? I mean, are we vessels too?
That's the question, isn't it? If humans are also vessels for this divine light, what are we doing to ensure that our vessels are strong and open to receiving that light?
So Kabbalah is about more than just knowing about this light. It's about how we experience it.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the potential within each of us and using the teachings to unlock that potential.
Now, you mentioned teachings. The book talks about meditation and mitzvot. Are those some of the practical techniques that Kabbalah offers?
They are, and the book really dives into how these practices can connect us with spiritual energy and, help us transform ourselves.
So it's about actually doing something, not just thinking about it.
Right. And that brings us to another interesting concept, devakut.
Devakut. Okay, you're going to have to explain that one.
It basically refers to the union of opposites, the merging of forces that seem contradictory. It's a concept that plays out both on a cosmic level, but also within each of us.
So like finding balance between the different parts of ourselves, those opposing forces that are always pulling us in different directions.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And it's not just about achieving some static state of balance either. It's more about embracing that dynamic interplay between those forces. It's a continual journey of growth and transformation.
I'm already starting to see how Kabbalah goes way beyond just theoretical knowledge.
Yeah.
It's really about applying these concepts to our own lives.
Absolutely. And one thing that struck me was the book's preface. It's Rabbi Berg's personal story of how he got into Kabbalah.
Yeah, I read that too. It's like his own journey of discovery.
And what's interesting is how he emphasizes the need to make these teachings accessible. He even shares the story about a phone call that, to him, was like a sign that it was time to share this wisdom with a wider audience.
It makes you wonder if this resurgence of interest in Kabbalah is because the world needs it now more than ever. Like maybe we're all collectively searching for deeper truths, that connection that Kabbalah seems to offer.
It's a really compelling thought, isn't it? Maybe we are.
So we have all these fascinating concepts, this rich history, and this growing interest in Kabbalah today. But how do we bridge that gap between these lofty ideas and our daily lives? How do we make this ancient wisdom relevant to the world we live in now?
That's the key question, right? And that's exactly what this book tackles. There's a whole section devoted to practical applications called Establishing the Connections, Practical Applications. It's all about bridging that gap.
From what I saw in the table of contents, it covers things like meditation and mitzvot.
Exactly. And the book emphasizes that these aren't just rituals or abstract concepts. They're tools that we can use for connecting with spiritual energy and for transforming ourselves from the inside out.
So it's about more than just intellectually grasping these ideas. It's about actually embodying them.
You got it. It's about integrating these principles into everything we do, our thoughts, our actions, even how we interact with the world around us.
It sounds like a journey for sure. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's talk about Rabbi Philip S. Berg, the author of this book.
He's a pretty prominent figure in the modern Kabbalah movement. He actually founded the Kabbalah Center.
The Kabbalah Center. I've heard of that. Isn't it like a school for Kabbalah?
You could say that. It's an organization dedicated to teaching Kabbalah and providing resources for people to learn and actually apply these principles in their own lives.
It's incredible to think how he's helped make this world of mystical wisdom accessible to a whole new audience.
Absolutely. And his book, Iniciación a la Kabbalah, is a fantastic place to start for anyone who wants to delve into this ancient tradition.
Okay, so we've just dipped our toes into this vast ocean that is Kabbalah, but what's really grabbing your attention so far? What stands out to you the most?
What fascinates me the most is how Kabbalah manages to bridge the gap between the spiritual and the practical. It offers this profound understanding of the universe, but at the same time gives us tools for personal transformation and for creating a more harmonious world. It's both deep and practical.
I totally agree. It's this beautiful blend of intellectual exploration and real-world application.
Right. And that's what makes it so relevant, I think, especially in today's world, which can feel so fragmented and chaotic. Kabbalah seems to offer a path towards unity, meaning, and purpose.
That's beautifully said. But before we get too carried away, I want to go back to this idea of simsum, or restriction, that we touched on earlier. Can you remind us what that's all about?
Oh, yeah. Simsum is a core Kabbalistic concept. It describes the very beginning of creation, and it's the idea that the infinite light of the Creator had to contract or withdraw itself in order to make space for the universe to exist.
Hold on. So you're saying that creation began with an act of, like, self-limitation. That seems kind of counterintuitive.
I know, right? But it's not about the Creator becoming less powerful. It's actually an expression of its infinite love and desire to share its light with creation.
Wow. That's a pretty mind-blowing concept. It suggests that this duality, this tension between expansion and contraction, was woven into the very fabric of the universe from the get-go.
And you see this theme of duality recurring all throughout Kabbalah. It's in the 10 luminous emanations, it's in the tree of life, and it's even in the practical applications, like Davikut.
So is Kabbalah about understanding and mastering this duality, like this dance between light and darkness, giving and receiving?
Exactly. It's about recognizing that both forces are essential, that they're two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other.
It makes you think about how often we try to push away or deny parts of ourselves that we see as negative or that we don't like.
It's true. But Kabbalah embraces the totality of existence. It acknowledges that even those aspects that challenge us have a role to play.
That's actually a really liberating perspective. It frees us from this pressure of trying to be perfect and allows us to embrace the fullness of our human experience, the good and the bad.
And I think that's a really crucial step on the path to spiritual growth and deeper understanding.
Okay, I'm ready to delve deeper into these 10 luminous emanations. You said they represent the stages of creation, right?
They do. These emanations, also known as the Sephirah, they're like building blocks of the universe. They're 10 divine attributes or emanations of the Creator's light, each one representing a different aspect of its being and power.
So they're not physical things, but more like spiritual forces or qualities.
Exactly. And they're all interconnected and interdependent. They form this intricate web that shapes the very fabric of reality.
Wow, it sounds really complex. How does the book even describe these emanations?
It breaks them down one by one and explains the unique qualities of each Sephirah and the role that it plays in this creative process. So, for instance, the first Sephirah, Keter, it represents the crown. It's the ultimate source of divine will and wisdom.
And what about the other Sephiroth? How do they fit into this picture?
Each one kind of builds upon the previous one, like unfolding the creative process step by step. So you have Chakma, the second Sephirah, which represents wisdom, that initial burst of divine energy. Then you have Bina, the third Sephirah, which represents understanding. It's the force that gives form and structure to that energy.
So it's like this cascade of divine attributes, each one shaping and refining this creative impulse.
Exactly. And as these emanations continue to unfold, they create the different realms of existence, from the spiritual to the physical, and ultimately culminating in the world that we experience, the one we know.
It's like a cosmic blueprint, a map of the divine unfolding itself into creation.
And it's not just a theoretical model, it's a living system.
Yeah.
One that we can actually tap into through studying and practicing Kabbalah.
Okay, I have to ask, how do these emanations relate to us? Can we connect with them on a personal level?
That's a fantastic question, and the answer is a definite yes. Kabbalah teaches that each Sephirah actually corresponds to a specific aspect of our being, a quality or a potential that we all have within us.
So by understanding the Sephiroth, we're actually gaining a deeper understanding of ourselves.
Precisely. For example, the Sephirah of Chizd represents loving kindness, that capacity for compassion and empathy that we all possess. And then Gevurah represents strength and discipline, our ability to set boundaries and make tough choices.
It's like a spiritual personality map. It helps us identify our strengths, our weaknesses, and work towards greater balance and integration.
That's a great way to put it. By consciously connecting with these divine attributes, we can cultivate those qualities within ourselves and live more harmonious and purposeful lives.
That's incredibly empowering. It suggests that we're not just like victims of circumstance. We're active participants in our own spiritual evolution.
Exactly. That's a core message of Kabbalah, recognizing our inherent potential and using these teachings and tools to unlock that potential, ultimately leading to a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
This has been so insightful already. But before we move on, I want to circle back to the Zohar for a minute. You mentioned it's like a central text in Kabbalah. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? What is it exactly?
The Zohar is considered one of the most important and influential texts in Kabbalah. It's a multifaceted work that's full of mystical insights, allegories, and interpretations of the Torah.
And it was revealed by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, right?
That's right. The book actually tells the story of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who lived back in the 2nd century. And tradition says that he spent years in hiding, studying the Torah, and receiving divine revelations. And those revelations formed the basis of the Zohar.
Wow. It sounds like it emerged from a place of deep spiritual connection and revelation.
Absolutely. And the text itself is infused with that mystical energy. It's not meant to be taken literally, but rather as a spiritual guide, a map, if you will, for navigating the inner realms of consciousness.
So it's more about unlocking the hidden meanings and symbolism within the Torah.
Exactly. The Zohar uses this method of interpretation known as Sod, which dives into the deeper, esoteric layers of meaning in the biblical text.
That sounds incredibly complex. What are some of the key insights or revelations that the Zohar offers?
Well, it explores big questions like the nature of the divine, the creation of the universe, the role of humanity, and the path to spiritual enlightenment. It even gets into things like reincarnation.
Reincarnation, that's fascinating.
Right. And it doesn't just present these ideas as abstract theories. The Zohar uses these vivid stories and parables and mystical dialogues to bring them to life.
It sounds like an incredible source of spiritual wisdom and mystical insights. But how does one even begin to approach a text as complex as the Zohar?
Studying the Zohar is definitely a journey, and it's often recommended to approach it with the guidance of a qualified teacher.
That makes sense. It's such a layered and symbolic work that it would be easy to get lost in the intricacies without some kind of guidance.
And that's why I think the book we're looking at, Initiation à la Kabbalah, is so valuable. It provides a clear and accessible introduction to a lot of the concepts found in the Zohar, making them easier to grasp for those who are new to Kabbalah.
It's like a bridge, a connection between the complexity of the Zohar and our desire to understand these profound teachings.
Exactly. And I think that bridge is essential if we want to make Kabbalah relevant and accessible to the world today. So we've got these 10 luminous emanations, those Sephirot, the building blocks of creation. And then we've got the Zohar acting like this decoder ring for the Torah. But how do these actually connect? Like, how do they all work together?
That's a good question. Is there something that, like, visually ties all of this together? Maybe a map or a diagram or something?
There is. It's called the Tree of Life.
Oh, the Tree of Life.
It's like this cosmic family tree where each of those Sephirot is represented by a circle, and all these circles are connected by lines that show how this divine energy flows.
I think I've seen that image before. It's beautiful but kind of confusing. How do you actually use it to, understand Kabbalah?
Think of it as a map, but not just a map of the universe like the one out there. A map of your own inner world. Each sephira represents a quality, a potential that we all have inside of us. And by tracing those pathways on the tree, you can start to see how these qualities interact with each other. You can see where you might have blockages, and you can see the path to becoming more whole, more integrated.
Okay, so it's not just a pretty picture. It's actually a tool that you can use for self-discovery and growth.
Exactly.
But there are so many circles and lines on there. Where do you even start?
Well, that's where studying Kabbalah comes in. It gives you the keys to unlock the symbolism, to understand the language of the tree. For instance, those 3 central pillars, they represent different aspects of our being: severity, mercy, and a central pillar that represents balance.
Ah, so it's about finding that sweet spot, right? The strength and discipline of Gevurah, the compassion of Chizd, all integrated through that central pillar of balance.
You got it. And the Tree of Life actually shows you how those forces are always interacting. They're always flowing into each other. It's not about trying to suppress one or the other. It's about recognizing that they're connected and striving for that harmony between them.
This is starting to make more sense, but does the Tree of Life tell us anything about our, everyday lives, the physical world around us, I mean?
It absolutely does. You see, Kabbalah teaches that everything in the physical realm is a reflection of the spiritual realm. So even though the Tree of Life depicts these spiritual forces, it also maps onto our physical bodies and the natural world around us.
Whoa, so we're like mini trees of life ourselves.
In a way, yes.
That's a cool thought. But how does that actually, help us in practical terms, I mean?
Well, it gives you this framework for understanding how your inner world and the outer world are connected. Like, for example, if you're struggling with a certain emotion, let's say anger, the Tree of Life can actually help you understand the root cause of that anger and how to work with it.
Okay, so let's say I'm dealing with some anger. Where would I look on the Tree of Life to help me understand that emotion?
Anger is often associated with Gevurah, the Sephira of strength and restriction. Now, it's important to understand that this doesn't automatically mean that anger is bad. Anger can be used for good, like setting healthy boundaries. But when it gets out of balance, it can become destructive.
So how could I use the Tree of Life to kind of bring that anger back into balance?
Well, look at the tree. You'll see that Gevurah is actually connected to Chizd, the Sephira of loving kindness, through Tiferet, which is the Sephira of beauty and harmony.
Oh, interesting. So instead of suppressing that anger, I should try to balance it out with more compassion and understanding.
That's the idea. By cultivating those qualities associated with Chizd and Tiferet, you can soften the harshness of Gevurah and potentially transform that anger into something more constructive.
Wow, that's really helpful. It's like the Tree of Life is giving us a roadmap for navigating our emotions
It is.
and turning those negative patterns into positive ones.
Exactly. It's a tool for personal growth and understanding. And this is just one example. You can use the Tree of Life to get insights into all sorts of challenges you face, like relationships, making career choices, even understanding your physical health.
It's like having a mystical GPS for life.
Yeah.
Can the Tree of Life tell us anything about the future, though?
Good question.
Can we use it to predict what's going to happen or to, help us make decisions?
Kabbalah can definitely give you insights into these cycles and patterns in life, but it's not about fortune-telling.
Oh, wait.
It doesn't really predict specific events. The focus is on understanding the forces at play and then using that knowledge to make choices that align with your purpose.
So it's more about empowerment than prediction.
Exactly. Kabbalah teaches that we have free will, that we have the ability to shape our own destinies. And the tree of life is a tool that can help us understand the consequences of our choices. It can help us make decisions that lead to fulfillment and spiritual growth.
Makes sense. It's about working with the flow of energy rather than trying to, like, control or manipulate it.
That's a great way to put it. And it leads us to another important concept, tikkun olam, or repairing the world.
Oh, I've heard that phrase before. But what does it mean in the context of Kabbalah?
Tikkun olam is this idea that we have a responsibility to heal the brokenness in the world, both within ourselves and in the world around us. It's about recognizing that we are all interconnected, that what we do affects others, and it's about working to create a more just, compassionate, and harmonious world.
So it's not just about, personal enlightenment. It's about taking action to make a real difference.
Exactly. Kabbalah teaches that our actions have a ripple effect, that everything we do influences the world around us. And when we align ourselves with those divine attributes that are represented by the Sephiroth, we can actually bring those qualities into the world. And we can contribute to healing and positive change.
It suggests that every single one of us has the power to make a difference, even if it seems like our actions are small.
Absolutely. It's a powerful reminder that we are not just passive observers, we're active participants. We're co-creators.
Oh, creators. I like it.
Co-creators with the divine.
Now, the book also touches on the concept of the Messiah. What does that mean in Kabbalah? Are we talking about, like, a specific person, or is it more of a symbolic idea?
The concept of the Messiah in Kabbalah is actually pretty multifaceted. It can refer to a future era of peace and harmony. It can refer to a state of consciousness or even to a process of personal transformation.
So it's not necessarily about waiting for some kind of savior figure to come and fix everything for us.
Right. Kabbalah teaches that the Messianic age can be brought about through our collective efforts.
Through our efforts.
Through tikkun olam, through repairing the world. It's about each of us taking responsibility for our own actions, for cultivating compassion, and working towards building a more just and equitable society.
So in a way, we are all potential messiahs.
I love that way of thinking about it. Kabbalah emphasizes that each of us has that potential to embody those divine attributes and to contribute to the healing of the world. The Messianic age isn't some far-off event, It's a state of being that we can actually cultivate within ourselves and then manifest in the world through our actions.
That is a really hopeful and inspiring message. It reminds us that we're not powerless in the face of all the challenges in the world. We actually have a choice.
We do.
We can choose love over fear, we can choose compassion over judgment, and we can actively work towards creating a better future.
That's the essence of Kabbalah right there. It empowers us to become these conscious co-creators with the divine, to manifest a world that reflects the harmony and the beauty of the tree of life.
This has been an incredible journey so far. We've explored the Sephiroth, the tree of life, the Zohar, Tikkun Olam, even the concept of the Messiah. But there's one piece of the puzzle that I'm particularly curious about. The practical applications. How do we actually integrate these teachings into our everyday lives? What are the actual tools and techniques that Kabbalah provides?
That's where it gets really exciting, because Kabbalah isn't just a bunch of theories. It's a living wisdom tradition that has all these practical tools for personal transformation and for spiritual growth.
So it's not enough to just understand the concepts intellectually. We have to embody them.
You got it.
In our thoughts, in our actions, and how we interact with the world.
Exactly. And the book that we're exploring, Iniciación a la Kabbalah, has this big section that's dedicated to outlining those practical tools, and it calls them herramientas operacionales, operational tools.
Herramientas operacionales. Now that sounds intriguing. What kind of tools are we talking about here?
Well, first and foremost, there's meditation. It's central to so many spiritual traditions, including Kabbalah. But Kabbalistic meditation is unique in the way that it focuses on connecting with those specific energies and attributes of the Sephiroth.
Oh, so it's not just about, like, emptying your mind or something. It's about intentionally directing your attention towards those specific qualities you want to cultivate.
Precisely. There are actually different techniques within Kabbalistic meditation. Some involve visualization, others focus on chanting or contemplation of specific passages from the Zohar.
That sounds really powerful. What other tools are there besides meditation?
The book also emphasizes the importance of mitzvot, those commandments and precepts found in the Torah. But Kabbalah goes beyond just the literal interpretation of those commandments. It sees them as these opportunities to connect with spiritual energy and to refine our character.
So it's not just about blindly following rules, it's about understanding the deeper meaning behind them.
Exactly. Each mitzvah is seen as a channel, a way to draw down divine light and to bring more harmony into the world.
I love how Kabbalah weaves together the spiritual and the practical, making it relevant to everyday life. Are there any other tools mentioned in the book?
Oh, absolutely. It talks about things like reciting blessings, giving tzedakah, which is charity, and even observing Shabbat. It sees them all as powerful tools for both personal growth and for tikkun olam.
It's amazing how it takes these everyday actions and gives them this deeper spiritual significance.
That's what's so cool about it. It's not about escaping the world, it's about bringing spirituality into our daily routines and transforming ourselves from within.
This is all so insightful. But is there any one practice, any tool that you find to be particularly transformative that really stands out to you?
One practice that I find especially fascinating is this concept of devakut that we were talking about earlier. It's about achieving that mystical union with the divine, entering into the state of profound connection and surrender.
That sounds really deep. Is devikut something that you can actively cultivate, or is it more like a spontaneous mystical experience?
Kabbalah actually teaches that while devekut can happen spontaneously, you can also cultivate it through practice, through refining your character. It's about aligning your thoughts, your words, and your actions with the divine will, and essentially dissolving that feeling of separation between yourself and the Creator.
So it's about bridging that gap between the human and the divine, like merging our individual consciousness with the infinite.
Exactly. And the book really emphasizes that devekut isn't just some abstract concept either. It has real-world effects. When you cultivate that sense of union, it influences your relationships, your work, how you perceive the world around you. Everything becomes infused with this sense of sacredness and interconnectedness.
That's such a beautiful image. It's like seeing the world through the eyes of the divine, recognizing that spark of divinity in every being and in every experience.
And that's really the ultimate goal of Kabbalah. It's to help us awaken to that inherent divinity within ourselves and within the world around us. It's about bridging the gap between heaven and earth, bringing that light of the Sephiroth into our lives, and illuminating that path towards greater unity, compassion, and love.
It is powerful stuff, this idea that we can shape our destinies and influence the world. But how do we make sure we use that power for good? How does Kabbalah help us navigate all that?
Well, I think that's where the concept of intention becomes super important. Kabbalah teaches that our actions are only as powerful as the intention behind them. It's not just about like going through the motions of spiritual practices or performing good deeds. It's about doing those things with like a pure heart, with a genuine desire to connect with the divine.
So our motivation matters just as much as the actual action itself.
Exactly. Kabbalah teaches that everything we do, our thoughts, words, and actions, create these energetic ripples that extend way beyond ourselves. And those ripples, when they're fueled by selfish desires or by negativity, they contribute to that chaos and imbalance in the world. But when those ripples are fueled by love, by compassion, a desire to serve something bigger than ourselves, that's when they become really powerful forces for tikkun olam, for repairing the world.
I love that image of the ripples. It makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Like that saying, energy flows where attention goes.
Yeah.
You know, if we're constantly focused on the negative, on what we lack, that's the kind of energy we're putting out there.
Yeah.
But if we can shift our focus, cultivate gratitude, generosity, kindness, well, those qualities naturally flow into our actions,
Yeah.
and they create this more positive ripple effect.
You got it. And I think that's where the Tree of Life becomes such a powerful tool. You know, when we study those Sephiroth and understand those qualities that they represent, we can actually consciously choose to align ourselves with the attributes that we want to embody. It's like having a spiritual toolbox for personal transformation.
So it's not just about knowing what the tree of life is. It's about actually living it,
Right.
embodying those qualities, like in our daily lives.
Beautifully said. Kabbalah is all about that embodiment. It's about aligning our inner world with that divine blueprint. You know, it's about becoming living, breathing expressions of that tree of life, radiating those qualities of love, compassion, wisdom, strength out into the world.
I love that image.
Yeah.
But it sounds like a lifelong journey, this continual process of refining ourselves and like becoming more and more aligned with those divine attributes.
That's the beauty of it. Kabbalah isn't about like quick fixes or rigid rules. It's a dynamic path,
Yeah.
one of growth and discovery that unfolds over time as we deepen our understanding of ourselves and the universe.
It's like, peeling back the layers of an onion, always revealing deeper and deeper levels of meaning.
That's a great analogy.
Now, I have a question that I'm sure many people are wondering. Is Kabbalah only for people who are like deeply religious or have a background in Jewish mysticism? Can anyone benefit from these teachings, even if they like don't subscribe to a specific faith or religion?
That's a great question. And honestly, it's one I hear a lot. And while these teachings definitely originated within Jewish mystical tradition, I believe that their wisdom and insights are universal. I mean, they can benefit anyone who's searching for meaning, for purpose, for connection. Those are human longings. They transcend any specific religion or belief system.
So it's not about converting to a specific religion. It's about tapping into this universal wisdom that speaks to something deep within us.
Exactly. At its heart, Kabbalah is about understanding the nature of reality, the forces that shape our lives, and the path towards greater wholeness. And those are universal aspirations, you know. Everyone wants those things.
That's really reassuring to hear. It means that anyone, no matter their background, can connect with these teachings.
They can.
They can use them to enrich their lives and contribute to making the world a better place. But where do you even begin? How does someone start exploring Kabbalah?
There isn't one right answer to that, to be honest. There are lots of pathways into Kabbalah, and the best approach really depends on what interests you, your learning style, how deep you want to dive. Some people might start by reading those introductory texts, you know, like the one we've been discussing, Iniciación a la Kabbalah.
Right.
Others might join study groups or find a teacher who can guide them.
So it's about finding what feels right for you, what resonates.
Exactly. It's a personal journey. And I think the most important thing is just to approach it with an open heart and a curious mind and that willingness to embark on this journey of transformation.
This has been an amazing deep dive into the world of Kabbalah. We've covered so much: the Sefirot, the Tree of Life, the Zohar, Tikkun Olam, even the concept of the Messiah. We've talked about practical tools for transformation and how these ancient teachings can be relevant for anyone, anyone who's looking for meaning and purpose in our modern world. So as we wrap up this exploration, is there like a final thought, a question you want to leave our listeners with, something for them to ponder as they maybe continue their own exploration?
Absolutely. If, as this book suggests, studying Kabbalah can really unlock a deeper understanding of the universe and ourselves, what aspect of it resonated most with you and why?